Q and Review, celebrating 40 years of audio production, welcomes you to this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast, recorded from our studio in the Bishopbriggs Media Centre and by our volunteers working from home. Keep up to date with Q and Review news via our Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, or Instagram at Q and Review. That's @CUEANDREVIEW, or get in touch with us directly by emailing information@qandreview.com. That's INFORMATION @CUEANDREVIEW.com, or by calling us on 0141 772 3979. Please like and share our podcast and give us constructive feedback.
Evening Times Sport, March 4. Celtic eye summer transfer move for Lennon Miller. Report by David Irvin. Celtic are reportedly continuing their transfer interest in Motherwell midfielder Lennon Miller. The 18-year-old Fir Park ace was linked with a possible transfer switch during the winter transfer window, but a transfer approach was rebuffed. However, the Daily Record claims Celtic are keeping close tabs on Miller, who returned to action last month after an injury issue kept him out for 6 league matches. Miller, who is a Scotland under-21 international, has also been touted for a move to Europe, with German side Eintracht Frankfurt interested. Celtic, though, remain keen on the player, with the report stating scouting reports are regularly filed to Brendan Rodgers, with club chiefs aware of other interested clubs. Motherwell rejected bids for Miller from Udinese and Union San-Gilloise in the January transfer window. Miller is out of contract at the end of next season, but it's claimed club chiefs will likely consider offers for the key player instead of losing him for free. It is thought Motherwell would demand a record transfer fee for Miller in excess of the £3 million fee Celtic paid for David Turnbull. On transfer speculation over January, while he was recovering from injury, Miller said, "My aim is to get back fit. That stuff takes care of itself, and I was just trying to get focused to get back on the pitch and play for Motherwell. It's obviously not nice to get injured, and for it to be longer than I first expected is a tough one. But you've got to get your head down. You've got to work hard and come back as fit as possible, and then to build up from there." Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, March 4. Dalmuir golfer told by council source course will likely close. Report by Catherine Hunter. Golfers fighting to save an under-threat golf course claim they have been told there is a 99% chance it will close. Dalmuir Golf Course, which was saved from potential closure last year, is once again on a list of saving options in Western Bartonshire Council's budget, and could be shut down or have its opening hours reduced. Members have launched a campaign to save the course, but one member claims he was told by a council source that they are 99.9% sure that Dalmuir Golf Club will close, and not to touch the trees or anything else that has fallen onto the course. Since the course was earmarked for closure for a second time in 12 months, an online petition to save it has gained almost 3,500 signatures. Gary Smith, who launched the petition, says he is not confident they will save Dalmuir again, and are looking at the possibility of a community asset transfer, a legal process that allows a community to take ownership or management of public land or buildings. He said, "This is something we have been discussing and something that we are looking to do. We have guys who come here who are struggling with personal issues, and this is their way out. They have friends here. We have had one meeting with the council in April 2024 to see how they could help improve numbers. They were supposed to be monthly, but the second one never happened. The council says the closure of Dalmuir Golf Course could save £175,000, but that is not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. Our priority now is keeping it open, which is why we are going for the community asset transfer. We want to thank everyone who has supported our petition." The petition this year has not only gathered momentum from the local community, but also from world-class golfers including Justin Rose, Paul McGuinness, Luke Donald and Robert McIntyre, who won the Scottish Open last year. Evening Times Sport, March 4. Fenerbahce star hit with bizarre charge ahead of Rangers clash. Report by Mark Walker. Fenerbahce keeper Dominik Livakovic has been hit with a bizarre charge ahead of their Europa League showdown with Rangers for digging up a UNESCO heritage site in his homeland. Rangers face Jose Mourinho's side in Istanbul in the first leg of the round of 16 Europa League tie. But his keeper, Croatian international Livakovic, has been handed an unnecessary distraction ahead of the tie. He has been charged by prosecutors on the Croatian island of Krk for digging up walls beside property he owns because the area is classed as a UNESCO heritage site due to its Roman ruins. Croatian authorities ordered construction work to immediately halt, and the 30-year-old will have to return home later this year and contest the charges. The 62-times capped keeper joined Fenerbahce 2 years ago in a £6 million deal from Dinamo Zagreb and is Mourinho's number one at the club. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, March 4. How much could Rangers earn by beating Fenerbahce? Report by David Irwin. Rangers could further add to their Europa League earnings this season by beating Fenerbahce in the round of 16. The Ibrox side advanced straight into that last 16 after finishing in the top 8 of the league phase, meaning no need to play in the knockout playoff round. Now Rangers will take on Fenerbahce in the round of 16 after the Turkish side overcame Anderlecht by a 5-2 margin over 2 legs. Barry Ferguson will first lead his side to Istanbul for the first leg on Thursday, before the return fixture in Govan on Thursday, March 13. Rangers have already banked £9.15 million in earnings from their efforts in the Europa League. The figure comes from league phase participation, 4 win bonuses, 2 draw bonuses, qualification to the round of 16, a league ranking bonus, and a top 8 finish fee. Qualification to the quarter-final, though, would see the club add €2.5 million to their income from the tournament. The figures calculate purely performance and participation earnings and do not include legacy UEFA payments or ticket sales. Rangers guaranteed Europa League earnings so far. League phase participation, €4.31 million. Win bonuses, €1.8 million. Draw bonuses, €300,000. Qualification to the round of 16, €1.75 million. League ranking bonus, €2.175 million. Top 8 finish in league phase, €600,000. Guaranteed total, €10.935 million or £9.15 million. Potential Europa League payments. First to 8th in league phase, €600,000. 9th to 16th in league phase, €300,000. At least €75,000 increased by the same figure for every position above the bottom in the league phase. Qualification for the knockout round playoffs, €300,000 per club. Qualification for the round of 16, €1.75 million. Qualification for the quarter-finals, €2.5 million. Qualification for the semi-finals, €4.2 million. Qualification for the final, €7 million. The winner can expect to receive an additional €6 million. Report by David Irvin. Evening Times Sport, March 4. Ben Lagg's journey from Tiree to the surfing capital of Europe. Report by Susan Egglestaff. Hawaii is more likely to spring to mind when thinking of a surfing breeding ground than the Inner Hebrides. And while the United States island remains a surfing hotspot, it is the Scottish island of Tiree from which one of the brightest prospects in international surfing has emerged. Ben Lagg is just 20 years old, but already is making more than a few waves in the surfing world. His global recognition is a far cry from his early days in the water, when he was often the only surfer for miles around off the coast of Tiree. Which is why, in those early days, while he had dreams of becoming a professional surfer, in reality it seemed an impossibility. Lagg recalls, growing up in Tiree, there weren't any other surfers, and I often had the sea to myself. There were kite surfers and wing surfers, but in terms of normal surfers, there just were not any others, and especially in the winter, there would be nobody else in the water. Which is why, when I was younger, I really never realized that I was any good. Being in Tiree, we were so isolated from other surfers, and so while I knew I was surfing quite well, I had no idea what it was like in comparison to other people. Lagg's introduction to surfing at the age of only 2 came courtesy of his dad, who, having begun windsurfing earlier in his life, had relocated to Tiree and started up a surf school. As a teenager, Lagg began competing and quickly made a name for himself. Red Bull signed him at the age of only 17, but it was last month that the Scot hit a real career high. Lagg finished in 3rd place in the Nazaré Big Wave Challenge in Portugal, a result which really made the surfing community and beyond sit up and take notice. His inclusion in one of the world's most prestigious surfing competitions came only at the very last minute. The surfing legend Garrett McNamara had withdrawn from the event, and the Hawaiian native called Lagg himself to ask if the Scot would like to take his place, with Lagg barely hesitating before he accepted. The event in Nazare is designed to showcase low-in surfing, in which surfers are slingshotted into waves on ropes attached to the back of jet skis, with Larg paired with Englishman, fellow Red Bull surfer and friend, Andrew Cotton. Despite the late call-up, the pair excelled among the 30-foot-high waves, finishing third in the team competition, with Larg also finishing third in the individual standings. His impressive results were the most significant of his career so far, and for it to come alongside his training partner, mentor, and someone whom he grew up idolizing, Cotton, could not have been more fitting. For Cotton, Larg's emergence onto the international scene has come as little surprise, with the Englishman having spotted his teammates' potential some time ago. Says Cotton, Ben was part of a documentary which I watched, and I remember seeing him do a 30-foot wave in Ireland when he was only 14. That's a serious wave. He was the youngest person ever to do it, and I remember thinking, wow, that kid is amazing. Ben obviously has some real talent. He started coming to Nazare to do some training at the Red Bull base, so we began training together. It was a real breath of fresh air for me to see a young lad who was so talented, not just at surfing, but also as a waterman. That's really unusual because normally water knowledge comes much later in life, but Ben had that really young. And with Cotton having accumulated such a wealth of experience, he is in no doubt as to what his primary piece of advice to Larg would be. He says, my advice is that big wave surfing is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure to do everything very quickly because you can feel you're running out of time. You don't need to rush though, because the most beautiful thing about this sport is that there's always another big wave, so just take your time and enjoy it. Larg, who splits his time between Tiree, Nazare and Lanzarote, is hopeful he has a lengthy career ahead of him, and despite knowing there's no need to rush his career progression, he's already got several goals in mind for the near future. I'd like to win the Nazare Surf Challenge with Cotty, maybe next year or the year after, because we were so close this year, so it would be amazing to actually win it, he says. There's also talk of new big waves that haven't been found in Scotland yet, so I'm intrigued to try and find those. And ultimately the dream would be to still be surfing into my 60s. Report by Susan Egglestaff. Evening Times Sport, March 5. Jose Mourinho will get a statue if he brings in Europa League glory. Report by Mark Walker. Fenerbahce will build a statue of Jose Mourinho if he leads them to Europa League glory, according to Turkish legend Nihat. Rangers are in Istanbul for the first leg of the round of 16 Europa League clash with Fenerbahce, ahead of next week's return in Glasgow. Mourinho is the only manager to have won all three current European competitions and has won the Europa League twice with both Porto and Manchester United. Turkish clubs have only ever won one European competition in their long history. Galatasaray lifted the 2000 UEFA Cup after beating Arsenal, and Fenerbahce have never progressed beyond the semi-final of the Europa League, which they managed in 2013. Former Real Sociedad and Villarreal winger Nihat, who won 69 caps for his country before going on to become Turkey assistant manager and is now a TV analyst, reckons Mourinho could bring history to the club and would be immortalised with a statue next to the former Brazilian star Alex, who is the only Fenerbahce player to have received that honour. He said, if Jose Mourinho wins the Europa League with Fenerbahce, they will build a statue of him next to Alex's. I think his genius is really starting to show through now. At the weekend, fans were asking why Fenerbahce did not go on to score 4 or 5 goals, which they could easily have done. But Mourinho basically ordered them to go easy because he knows the importance of the Rangers match coming up. He really believes they can win the tournament. Maybe the club better order that statue because he is heading for more European glory. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, March 5. Mourinho has utmost respect for old firm. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Jose Mourinho has never been one to shy away from the big occasion, and the Fenerbahce boss is relishing the challenge of facing Rangers in the Europa League last 16. As the Turkish giants prepare to welcome Barry Ferguson's side to Istanbul tomorrow, Mourinho spoke with admiration for both halves of Glasgow's footballing divide, highlighting his deep respect for the city's 2 major clubs and their passionate fan bases. The former Real Madrid and Manchester United manager, known for his vast European experience, acknowledged the challenge ahead against a Rangers team who have saved their best performances for this competition, but made it clear he is eager to lock horns with a Scottish opponent. Said Mourinho, I have the utmost respect for both clubs and the supporters' families in Glasgow. Celtic and Rangers are 2 big clubs, incredible history, also in Europe, and I have lots of respect. Part of my formation was even in Scotland. I have so many Scottish friends from both colours, the green and the blue. I know it's going to be difficult, but I'm really happy to play against a Scottish team. I'm very happy to go next week to Scotland and play at Ibrox. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, March 5. Officials named for Scottish Cup quarter-finals, but one notable omission. Report by Robbie Hanratty. As the countdown to this weekend's Scottish Cup quarter-final ties continues, the Scottish FA has confirmed the refereeing teams for each match. However, one notable omission has raised eyebrows. Alan Muir will not be officiating in any of the games. This marks the 3rd consecutive set of fixtures Muir has missed, following his controversial role in the recent Hibs vs Celtic Scottish Premiership clash at Easter Road on February 22. In the 83rd minute of that match, with Hibs leading 2-1, Daizen Maeda appeared to score for Celtic, but despite the on-field officials, referee Stephen McLean and linesman David Room seeing no issue with the goal, Muir, operating as the VAR official, overturned the decision after a brief review. Muir confirmed the goal should not stand, citing that the ball had gone out of play before Alistair Johnston made the assist. Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers had publicly questioned the decision, stating, I am hoping to see conclusive evidence that it was out. The linesman on this side, he had his flag up quite a lot today. But for the goal, he has one of the best views in the ground, and he kept his flag down, which tells me that he felt it was in. Not all of the ball was out. So if that's the case, then you've got to go and review it with VAR. But then you're taking an angle from the 18-yard line. If you're taking the angle from the 18-yard line, and you can tell me that you can absolutely say 100%, then you're having to guess. The SFA's Key Match Incident (KMI) panel later reviewed the incident and voted almost unanimously that Muir's decision was incorrect and that Maida's goal should have stood. The decision has continued to spark controversy, particularly among Celtic fans, with the SFA panel voting 4-1 that the goal should have counted. As a result, Muir has now been excluded from all Scottish Cup quarter-final duties this weekend. Last week, Muir was left off the referee list for the 6 midweek Premiership fixtures and again at the weekend. Despite being one of only 3 full-time VAR officials in the country, Muir is still awaiting his next appointment, which will likely be scrutinised given the ongoing controversy over the Celtic goal. VAR will still be in operation for 3 of the 4 Scottish Cup ties this weekend, with Livingston's clash against St Johnstone the only tie missing the technology. The full refereeing appointments for the Scottish Cup quarter-finals are Livingston versus St Johnstone, referee Don Robertson. Celtic versus Hibs, referee Nick Walsh. Aberdeen versus Queen's Park, referee David Dickinson. Hearts versus Dundee, referee Kevin Clancy. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, March 5. Bryson DeChambeau calls on Scots to save Dalmuir Golf Course. Report by Ewan Payton. A 2-time major golf champion has pleaded with the Scottish public to save Dalmuir Municipal Golf Course. Bryson DeChambeau has urged Scots to continue to grow the amazing community at the Clydebank course. The public golf course faces closure, with Western Bartonshire Council mulling over a final decision on the matter. Craig Connolly, who has caddied for Paul Casey, Colin Montgomery and Martin Kamer in his 27-year career in the sport, played Dalmuir when he was growing up in the area. Now the Bankie local has gained the support of the world-famous LIV golfer DeChambeau. An online petition currently has over 3,500 signatures. I'm here to tell you about Dalmuir Golf Course and how important public golf courses are to the ecosystem, not only to golf in general, but to the community that you have there, the 31-year-old said in a video posted on Connolly's X account. Sometimes people do not realise the impact of what golf can be and what it is for a community, whether it's character development, personal growth, learning about yourself, or family development. I think it's important for people to understand that if you don't have golf courses like Dalmuir and a community like Dalmuir, it is difficult to continue to grow not only just a sport, but a community. This golf course is super important. I know it's super important, and I hope that people can understand how important it is for your community to go out and sign that petition. Keep this golf course alive. Keep it in existence. It's so important for everybody's sake, not just to sell whatever it is you guys sell, but to create an amazing community that you can grow, work around, and come together to make a different future for generations to come. Dalmuir survived the threat of closure just 12 months ago. The council state they pay more than £100,000 a year to subsidise running costs, while the loyal members who hold this valued come all ye entry-level facility dear claim the same council is not making efforts to make money with advertising, incentives or initiatives. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 5. Scott Wright, Deputy Business Editor, asks, would lifting football booze ban make sense for Scotland? It has long been a source of annoyance for football supporters in Scotland. If rugby fans can enjoy a beer at Murrayfield, and indeed if people in England are allowed to sup pints in the stadium concourses on match days, why can't supporters of the beautiful game be able to do likewise while watching their team in action? It sounds like a reasonable request, but then football and alcohol have a complex relationship in Scotland. Those of a certain vintage will recall the shocking scenes of 1980, when the Scottish Cup final clash between Rangers and Celtic ended with a full-scale riot on the pitch. Mounted police had to be drafted in to maintain order as supporters brawled. It was a shameful episode that effectively banned alcohol from football grounds in Scotland. Although the debate over lifting the ban has cropped up periodically in the 4.5 decades since, as football have questioned why they are treated differently to those following rugby, the consistent message from the authorities has been that it simply was not going to happen. Football, especially when it comes to matches between Celtic and Rangers, have been regarded as too volatile without introducing alcohol to the equation. Suddenly, however, the issue has returned to the agenda, and it's arguably come from the most unlikely of sources. Documents released under Freedom of Information, seen by the Herald and the Evening Times, reveal that Police Scotland has told the SPFL that it is minded to allow alcohol to be sold to fans on stadium concourses via a limited number of pilot projects. While Police Scotland said there would be no plans to remove the existing general restrictions on alcohol at football matches in Scotland, the idea that it is prepared to entertain such a proposal signals a radical change to the way football is policed in Scotland. It is also likely to reignite passionate debate in civic Scotland over whether mixing alcohol and football further is a good idea. Of course, alcohol is not completely absent at football matches in Scotland as things stand, with the booze flowing freely in private hospitality areas on match days, a major source of revenue for many clubs. It is certainly easy to imagine that clubs would welcome the new revenue opportunities that freer alcohol rules would bring. Clubs in Scotland are constrained severely in commercial terms compared with their counterparts in England because of the huge amount of TV money and advertising income that pours into the English game. Being able to serve alcohol at matches will not allow Scottish clubs to bridge the gap, but any extra money coming in would certainly help. Perhaps more importantly, it may give fans in Scotland the feeling that they are not second-class citizens and can be trusted to enjoy a pint as part of the matchday experience. Certainly, followers of clubs outside the Old Firm may argue that they are being punished by the actions of fans of the Glasgow Giants under the current ban, though clearly It could not be argued that bad behaviour is confined to supporters of Rangers and Celtic. On the flip side, football and alcohol in Scotland has proven in different ways to be a problematic combination for society over the years. Should the police and Scottish Government decide to go ahead with a limited pilot, there is no doubt they will have to proceed with caution, says Scott Wright, Deputy Business Editor. Evening Times Sport, March 6. Erin Wallace hopes 2025 will be her year. Report by Susan Egglestaff. So acute was her disappointment at missing out on a place in Team GB for Paris 2024. Erin Wallace could barely bring herself to watch more than a few minutes of last summer's Olympic Games. Despite having dipped under the Olympic 800 metres qualifying mark with a personal best run of 1 minute 59.20 seconds last summer, she fell victim to the fact that women's 800 metres running in Britain is currently stronger than it's ever been, with even a sub-2-minute effort not enough to secure selection. Coming so close to becoming an Olympian before missing out was, admits Wallace, a bitter pill to swallow at the time. The Glaswegian says, "I found it really hard to watch Paris. I watched the girls I train with, but then I'd turn the television off. And when the second season of the Sprint documentary came out, I knew it centred around Paris, which I knew would upset me, so I didn't watch." As the disappointment of missing the Olympics faded, Wallace was able to take many positives from last year, notably that she broke 2 minutes twice in one season for the first time in her career, and ran world-class times more regularly than ever before. She took those positives into her winter training block, which, given the company she mixes with day in, day out, has been invaluable. Wallace is part of Trevor Painter and Jenny Meadows' Manchester-based training group, which also includes Olympic 800 metres champion Kaylee Hodgkinson and Olympic 1500 metres medalist Georgia Bell, as well as a wealth of other Olympians and internationalists. And so, given the calibre of Wallace's training partners, it comes as little surprise that she's had a strenuous winter. The 24-year-old says, "The training is very, very tough. I do have moments when I stop and think, wow, this is just relentless. It could get demoralising getting beaten so often in training, but then I remind myself that these athletes I'm up against are so good. I go into my sessions just trying to do the best I can, and don't compare myself too much to other people. I need to remember that these girls are some of the very best in the world, and the reason why they're running so fast is they work extremely hard in training. So I just focus on doing that too." Wallace has begun 2025 in encouraging fashion, with some strong early season runs, as well as her fourth place finish at last month's British Indoor Championships, enough to ensure selection for Great Britain's squad for the European Indoor Championships, which begin today in the Dutch city of Apeldoorn. Wallace will run the 800 metres and is one of two Scots in Great Britain's 44-strong team in the Netherlands, with her fellow Giffnock North athlete Neil Gourley hopeful of improving upon the silver medal he won in the 1500 metres in 2023. Despite a stellar indoor season, Wallace remains somewhat dissatisfied that she's not been able to showcase just how fit she currently feels. And while indoor running rarely produces lightning-quick times, she is hopeful she can produce several good performances over the next few days, as well as gain some useful experience from being part of yet another Great Britain team. And she says, "My indoor season's gone okay so far, although I feel I'm training better than my results have shown. I am looking forward to the Europeans. Indoors is never the main priority of the year, but of course this week is a great opportunity for me. It will give me another shot at championship running over 800 metres and will be a stepping stone towards the summer." Already, Wallace has one eye on the outdoor season, with the focal point being the World Championships in Japan in September. She is well aware that she's battling Hodgkinson, as well as Gemma Ricci, Phoebe Gill, and several others for a place in this world's team, meaning selection will be no mean feat. But given her constant progression, she is remaining open-minded to anything potentially happening. And she says, "This season will be long, and I'll do some 1500s as well as 800s. The World Championship team will obviously be a very hard team to make, so I have to just focus on what I'm doing and try and run as well as I can. Things can change a lot between now and September. I could come out at the start of the summer and run a super fast time and be in a great position for the Worlds. So we'll see." Report by Susan Egglestaff. Evening Times Sport, March 6. Hibs legend David Gray to arise as Manager of the Year, asks Graham McGarry. Despite hazy memories of missiles of varying degrees of lethality raining down on me as I walked across the infamous Bridge of Doom toward Easter Road many moons ago, the football romantic in me has always retained something of a wee soft spot for Hibs. Maybe partly because it's easy, and admittedly in very patronising fashion, to be fond of those who are never really all that successful. Oh, how the rest of us have revelled in the mirth of watching Hibs teams, well, Hibs it over the years. Their very name became a verb to describe the act of fashioning calamity from almost any situation for very good reason. For their fans, though, that is what makes the good times all the sweeter, and what makes their success all the harder to grudge them when it does roll around. Yes, winning the Scottish Cup is good and all, but have you ever tried winning the Scottish Cup by coming back from the dead against one half of the Old Firm, sealing victory with a stoppage time header from a club legend after waiting 114 years to lift the trophy? That's what Hibs did. They persevered, as the club's new motto, well, proclaimed. And indeed, that stirring win over Rangers should have been the moment that the Easter Road club shook off that image of a team destined for disaster, as their players displayed courage, grit and determination to flip the script and, for once, snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, instead of the familiar crushing alternative. The years since, though, have hardly done much to reframe the club's reputation as a more reliable pick on the Saturday accumulator. There have been good times, of course. Promotion back to the Premiership the season following the Scottish Cup triumph at a relative canter. A fourth place finish in their first season back in the top flight, and the Lenny airplane after the 5-5 comeback draw against Rangers on the final day. There was a third-place finish, another Scottish Cup final that they lost to St Johnstone, and a League Cup final that they lost to Celtic. But there have also been a couple of bottom six finishes, poor recruitment leading to fortunes being burned on players who were not up to the task, and almost as much cash being wasted on a succession of managers, some of whom were bumped harshly, Jack Ross for example, and others who were simply poor choices, just about the rest of them. And it looked, lamentably, that the man who nodded home that famous goal at Hampden, David Gray, was about to become the latest through the revolving door on the Easter Road manager's office as recently as late November. But then, with one sclaff from Rocky Bushiri's boot, everything seemed to change. You cannot start a fire without a spark, and Bushiri's equaliser against the Dons has ignited an inferno down Easter Road Way. The big defender is basically Hibs in human form, flawed and flaky, but wholehearted, lovable, great on his day, and capable of pulling off the gloriously unexpected. Bushiri's dramatic stoppage time equaliser to snatch a 3-3 draw against Aberdeen at Easter Road, just seconds after seemingly losing the game at the death, seemed to flick a switch. For both sides, it has to be said, while Aberdeen have collapsed, the run that Hibs have been on since has been nothing short of remarkable. They have lost just one of their last 18 matches, a 3-0 defeat at Celtic Park, in which they actually played pretty well and squandered some gilt-edged chances. In all competitions, they are now 15 games unbeaten, while their run of 13 matches since tasting defeat on league duty is their best sequence since 1949. From nowhere, they are now third in the table. So what changed? Well, for a start, without meaning to be too harsh on Josef Bursic, their goalie did. The Club Bruges loanee was going through a torrid time of it between the sticks, giving off strong Mark Birgitti at Dundee United vibes from the season that they were relegated to the Championship. Gray may have belatedly recognised that his keeper was surely and sorely costing him, but he eventually handed the gloves to Jordan Smith that night against Aberdeen. And while the 30-year-old has not been faultless, he has inspired a great deal more confidence among the defenders in front of him than Bursic ever did. Bushiri obviously has had his rash moments, as he did in Sunday's Edinburgh derby, by presenting the ball to Jorge Grant to equalise for Hearts. But on the whole, he has become a colossal presence at the heart of the Hibs defence. He was a pivotal figure in the sensational win over Celtic on the previous weekend. Weekend hero Jack Iredale, who scored the stunning winner to put the Jambos to the sword, has been a revelation after Gray drafted him in and shifted to a back three. Nectar Triantis is like an entirely different player in the midfield. Nicky Cadden has been impressive all season, but has thrived even more performing as a left wing-back, and might even be in the conversation for the Player of the Year awards, albeit as a contender for third place, perhaps behind Dazen Maeda and Nicholas Kuhn. If Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers delivers a domestic treble, allied to his side's impressive Champions League campaign, he will be a shoo-in for the Manager of the Year award. But if Gray can maintain Hibs' place in third position, he deserves to be right in the hunt for pulling off the most remarkable resurrection Scottish football has seen, perhaps since his own moment of glory in the Hampden sunshine all those years ago. Rarely have the Hibs team and the fans been as connected as they are now. Gray takes his team back to Celtic Park this Sunday, the scene of their last defeat, where they will be backed by around 7,000 of their supporters in the Scottish Cup quarter-final. You would not bet too heavily on the Hibs players lining up in front of them at the end for another spine-tingling chorus of Sunshine on Leith, the best anthem in football incidentally, but it wouldn't be quite as big a shock as it undoubtedly would have been a few months ago. If the man known to his adoring Hibs public simply as Sir David Gray pulls it off, he may well be arising for another gong or two come the end of the season, says Graeme McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 6. Dessers wins international recall. Report by Mark Walker. Rangers striker Cyril Dessers has won an international recall with Nigeria for the first time in a year for their World Cup qualifiers. The 30-year-old has won 6 caps for his country and scored 2 goals for them, and has made no secret of the fact he would love to return to international action. He has not played for the Super Eagles since a year ago against Mali, but a change of management has helped him. Nigeria are now managed by former Mali boss Eric Chell, and he has recalled Dessers for their crucial World Cup double-header against Rwanda and Zimbabwe. He has also recalled former Rangers midfielder Joe Aribo to the squad for their must-win games, with the Super Eagles currently struggling in 5th place in their group. Dessers has scored 21 goals for the season in all competitions for Rangers, ahead of tonight's Europa League game at Fenerbahce. His last came in the 2-1 Scottish Premiership defeat to Motherwell. His double helped Barry Ferguson's men to a 4-2 win over Kilmarnock, and that good form has won him a recall for his country. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, March 7. Wimmer vindicating Motherwell call to think outside the box. Report by Graeme McGarry. Ordinarily a free weekend, because Motherwell have been knocked out of the Scottish Cup, would be about as welcome as a colonoscope, or worse, that trip to McDermott Park a week after being knocked out of the tournament at the same venue. Thanks to a glorious display of Wimmer ball at Ibrox last weekend though, there is instead a welcome opportunity for Motherwell fans to luxuriate in that stunning performance and victory over Rangers, while there is also genuine anticipation about what the new manager may be able to get from the team against St Mirren after 2 full weeks on the training pitch. That dismal double-header in Perth now seemed for Motherwell fans as though it was from another age, and not just a month or so ago, and it is scarcely believable that it was largely the same group of players who were involved in those debacles that put on such a composed and clinical showing in Govan. This is where I might normally caution against getting carried away, but where's the fun in that? God knows that there are enough lows supporting a football team, particularly one of the provincial ones in Scotland, so when there is a little bit of excitement and a wave of optimism, then I say, ride it for all it's worth. It may all come crashing down for Motherwell fans, but it may not, and the early signs are that Michael Wimmer has brought with him a refreshingly aggressive approach, one that the Fir Park fans have been crying out for, and that a team and club in turmoil was surely needing. Particularly from outside the Motherwell bubble, eyebrows were raised at Wimmer's appointment, and you can see why. The side were on a horrendous run of form, had been sucked into the relegation reckoning, and looked to be facing a scrap for survival. In such circumstances, the default setting of many would be to speculate that Motherwell needed a safe pair of hands, someone who knew the league, and what would be required in a dogfight at the bottom of the table. In short, a Scottish coach. When Wimmer was appointed, the reaction from some quarters was one of scepticism and concern, as a relatively inexperienced, at least as a head coach, candidate was plucked from Germany and tossed the unenviable task of righting a ship that seemed to be listing towards the Premiership trapdoor, or the playoffs at the least. The Fir Park board that then deserved huge credit for resisting those cautious instincts, because it seemed in these admittedly early days of the Wimmer reign that they have found precisely the right man at the right time to galvanise the steelmen and instantly reinstate the connection between the club and the fans. The win over Rangers was a perfect example of why a fresh pair of eyes from the outside, with no preconceptions about how difficult that match be, was valuable. There are many good coaches around Scottish football who would have been perfectly reasonable candidates for the Motherwell job, but would any of them have taken their new team to Ibrox after a week or so in charge and pressed high with 2 number 10s to force the errors that ultimately led to an unlikely victory? I doubt it. There were times when Motherwell had to come off the game and sit in a low block, but other than the mistake that led to the Rangers' goal, the team seemed comfortable in their shape and rarely looked like they were under any real pressure. Wimmer came up with a game plan that allowed Motherwell to repeatedly exploit the weaknesses in the Rangers team, chiefly through the boundless energy of Tom Sparrow running in behind Jefte on the right, whereas the instinct of a native manager may well have been to shut up shop and hope to nick it with a set piece. It is not that Wimmer did not show Rangers any respect, but he set his team out in a way that signalled he had no fear of them, and that belief seemed to transmit itself to the players on the pitch, who kept possession and zipped passes around with a confidence and a comfort I have rarely seen from a Motherwell side at Ibrox, or anywhere recently, come to think of it. So hats off to the new management team, and to the Motherwell board for being brave with their choice. It will be a tough ask to crack the top 6, with St Mirren sure to pose a stiff challenge next week as they look to make the top half. But at least Motherwell are now right up there in the mix again after the wins over Dundee and Rangers. I know it is early days, but the last 2 results, the weekend off, and the prospect of watching some more Wimmer ball will have well fans champing at the bit to get to Fir Park. Report by Graham McGarry. Evening Times Sport, March 7. Mourinho outlines fantastic Rangers performer. Report by Josh McCafferty. Jose Mourinho says Jack Butland was fantastic for Rangers against Fenerbahce. The English goalkeeper made a number of crucial saves for the Ibrox club in their memorable 3-1 victory in Istanbul, While Barry Ferguson's men were in fine fettle in attack, they were equally, for the majority of the match, stout at the back. The unexpected switch to a back five doubtless proved crucial, with the likes of Liam Balogun and John Souttar standing out. Although he collided with Robin Proper in the first half and forced the Dutch central defender off through injury, Butland remained reliable between the sticks. Post-match, Marino outlined how critical the goalkeeper was, as well as reflecting on how his side could have had a spot kick. And he said, "I know that Butland makes 3 fantastic saves. I know that there is, I think, a penalty. But to speak about the referee after this performance, I don't think it is ethical. Our performance was bad overall. The chances we had to score, we didn't. The dynamic in midfield was not good. We lost lots of duels. Our passing was not fast. Defensively, we made incredible mistakes." Although his side are now 2 goals down on aggregate, Marino refuses to believe that the tie is over. And he continued, "Rangers deserve the result. But for me it's not over. I know it's 3-1, so we are losing 3-1 when the game starts next week, but it's not over." Fenerbahce travel to Ibrox for the hotly anticipated second leg next Thursday. Report by Josh McCafferty. Evening Times Sport, March 7. Ferguson says Rangers spent less than an hour on formation change. Report by David Evan. Proud Barry Ferguson revealed Rangers spent less than an hour training for their formation change against Fenerbahce. The Ibrox interim boss changed to a 3 at the back formation for the Europa League tie in Istanbul, and it paid off as goals from Cyril Dessers and Vaclav Cherny saw Rangers claim a 3-1 victory in Turkey. "I wouldn't say I outfoxed him," said Ferguson. "We went away tonight that I thought we'd get as a result. The boys have not played it before this season, and we only spent 1 hour, in fact not even an hour on it. They took the information on, they went out there and certainly gave a performance that I have got to be proud of." On the result he added, "I'm proud of the boys because they have come through a lot this season. Certainly tonight they were excellent, so they deserve a lot of credit." Rangers now take the 3-1 lead back to Glasgow for the second leg next Thursday, and Ferguson is well aware of the struggles his side have faced playing at home, but vowed he will have them ready to compete for a spot in the quarter-final when he added, "As you know, Ibrox has been a problem. We will enjoy tonight. I will give the boys a couple of days off. That is well earned. And then we will try and fix that problem. I just want to go and enjoy this moment. Then, as I said in the dressing room, we need to be ready for next Thursday. But I will tell you something. I will have them ready." Meanwhile, Ferguson has provided an update on Robin Proper's injury. He said, "In terms of Robin, I think he got knocked out for a minute or 2. The big man is up a lot, so he should be okay, but you've got to be wary of that. It's a bit of concussion, so we'll see how he is in the next couple of days." Rangers don't have a game this weekend, allowing added recovery and preparation time. But it remains to be seen whether Proper will return for the showdown because of his withdrawal early in tonight's game. Evening Times Sport, March 7. Fenerbahce flop vows Rangers tie is not over. Report by Mark Walker. Fenerbahce's Dusan Tadic insists the Europa League tie is not over, despite their disastrous defeat at home to Rangers. The Ibrox club carry a 2-goal advantage for the second leg in Glasgow next week, after an incredible 3-1 win in Istanbul. However, 111 times capped Serbian star Tadic believes the Turks can still qualify, and the former Ajax and Southampton ace said, "It was definitely an unexpected result for us. Rangers are a very good team, but we are also a very good team. Unfortunately, we conceded very easy goals that we should not have lost. We should have been more organised, but we were not, and they punished us. We are behind after the first leg, and of course we have to go to Rangers to win. We have no choice now." Ghanaian international Alexander Djiku, who came on as a first-half substitute, admitted they could not cope with Rangers, and he said, "We are disappointed with the result, and unfortunately, we did not take advantage of the chances we created, and also gave away opportunities we should not have. Rangers were strong. Our aim is to get a result to bounce back in the second leg. We tried everything to get back quickly. We now have to focus on the second leg and do everything we can to get a result that will allow us to advance to the next round." Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, March 7. Beeb wins new home of Scotland international matches. Report by Ewan Payton. BBC is a new home for all Scotland international matches on the road to the 2026 FIFA World Cup in the USA, Canada and Mexico. It has been confirmed that Scotland's Nations League playoff doubleheader against Greece will be on free-to-air TV following an agreement struck with UEFA over the broadcast rights. Now the Beeb has announced they have obtained the rights to Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland fixtures following a re-tender of the rights by UEFA last month. All matches for the three home nations were sold by European football's governing body to the BBC as part of a package deal. The deal with UEFA covers 14 live Scotland matches, including the European qualifiers Group C ties against Belarus, Greece, and either Portugal or Denmark. The forthcoming Nations League playoff tie against the Greeks, and the June friendlies against Iceland and Liechtenstein. It comes months after Viaplay was stripped of their rights to beam Scotland's matches on TV. The news means that for the first time in over 20 years, fans of all four home nations will be able to watch their country in action for free. Ian Maxwell, Scottish FA Chief Executive, commented, "We are delighted that BBC Scotland has come to an agreement with UEFA for the rights to televise our Scotland men's national team on a free-to-air basis. It complements their existing coverage of the Scotland women's national team, and beyond that, their overall commitment to the domestic game in this country. We thank Viaplay for their support to this point. When it became apparent the rights could become available, we championed the potential for free-to-air coverage to reach as many Scotland supporters as possible, and we are grateful that BBC and UEFA could reach agreement. Steve Clarke and the squad are heading into an exciting period, with the UEFA Nations League Group A-B playoff this month against Greece, 2 friendlies in June, and a 26 FIFA World Cup qualification campaign to look forward to. It's great to have BBC Scotland supporting us for every kick of the ball. Hayley Valentine, Director BBC Scotland said, I'm so excited that millions of Scotland fans will now be able to enjoy free-to-air access to all Scotland's international matches. Bringing our audience together is at the heart of BBC Scotland's work, and I know nothing ignites passion here more than live international football. We have been working on this agreement since I started as director last autumn, and it was crystal clear from day one that people across Scotland wanted to see their national team back live on free-to-air television. I am delighted we have been able to deliver. Report by Ewan Payton. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Callum Hill claims playoff victory in Johannesburg Open. Scotland's Callum Hill defeated home pair Jack Kruijswijk and Sean Norris in a playoff to win his second DP World Tour title in the Johannesburg Open. A par at the second extra hole at Houghton Golf Club was good enough for victory after Norris pulled his second shot into the water and Kruijswijk three-putted from 30 feet. The trio had finished tied on 14 under par after Hill, who began the final round 8 shots behind Norris, had made the most of a lucky bounce to birdie the 18th and complete a superb closing 62. Kruijswijk birdied the 17th to join Hill on 14 under and missed a birdie putt to win in regulation on the 18th before playing partner Norris holed from 20 feet to make it a three-way playoff. After all three men parred at the first extra hole, Norris found a fairway bunker on the second and dragged his approach into the water after his right foot slipped in the sand. That ended his chances after Hill safely two-putted from the back of the green. Kruijswijk missed his par attempt, having charged his birthday putt 3 feet past the hole. The exciting finish came just in time, as thunder and lightning could be observed overhead, and that was much to Hill's relief that the game continued. It's awesome, the 30-year-old said. I thought we were having to go again, and this is ridiculous, pointing to the sky. It was a fantastic day, and then to win is the cherry on top. I got lucky with the bounce off the slope on the 72nd hole and made a nice 5-footer, and then it gave me a chance to have a go in this playoff. I think that might be my first playoff ever, so it's nice to have a 1-0 record. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Inform Yang earns international recognition. Report by Robbie Hanratty. For Yang, perseverance is proving to be a virtue. After biding his time at Celtic, the 22-year-old winger's patience and persistence are now being rewarded with international recognition. South Korea head coach Hong Myung-bo has named Yang in his 28-man squad for their upcoming World Cup qualifiers against Oman and Jordan, as Korea look to solidify their place at the 2026 FIFA World Cup. It is a well-earned call-up for Yang, who has been in scintillating form for Celtic over the past month, contributing to crucial goals and assists from the substitutes bench. Yet his journey to this point has been far from straightforward. Since joining Celtic in the summer of 2023, Yang has faced stiff competition for a starting berth, with the likes of Jota, Deezen Maeda and Nicholas Kuhn ahead of him in the pecking order. Game time has been hard to come by, but crucially, he has made the most of every opportunity, particularly in recent weeks. South Korea boss Hong acknowledged this, highlighting Yang's ability to make an impact despite his limited minutes. Hong admitted he has not been playing big minutes, and I don't think his playing time will increase significantly going forward. But he has been making a huge impact in a short amount of time. That's a great thing for both the player himself and for the national team. It is a testament to Yang's resilience. Rather than growing frustrated at his lack of consistent starts, he has embraced the challenge, maximised his opportunities, and now finds himself one of Korea's most in-form attacking players, heading into the March international break. Yang's inclusion comes at a pivotal moment for South Korea, who are currently leading Group B in the Asian qualifiers with 14 points from 6 games. They hold a 5-point cushion over third-place Jordan, so with 4 matches remaining, they could seal their place in the 26th World Cup during this upcoming international window. His last international appearance came in February 2024 during the Asian Cup, but given his recent form, Yang will be hoping to earn more minutes against Oman and Jordan. Whether he starts or continues to be an impact player off the bench, his selection is a clear sign that patience and persistence in football do pay off, says Robbie Hanratty. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Mourinho's comeback king legacy. Report by Mark Walker. Jose Mourinho is going for a magnificent 7 when he takes his Fenerbahce side to Rangers this week. He's managed to complete a European first leg defeat comeback 6 times. Rangers welcomed the Turkish side to Ibrox on Thursday for the second leg of the Europa League round of 16 clash, with a healthy 3-1 lead after an outstanding performance in Istanbul. Mourinho, the only manager to have won all current 3 European trophies, warned Rangers after the game to pause their celebrations because it was only half-time in the tie. And the 62-year-old is the master of overturning first-leg deficits in Europe. His first European comeback came in the UEFA Cup quarter-finals in 2003, when his Porto team overcame a 1-0 home defeat against Panathinaikos and won 2-0 in Athens to go through, and eventually beat Celtic in the final in Seville. Encouragingly for Rangers, that was the only time Mourinho has overturned a home first-leg defeat. He then suffered a first-leg defeat to Barcelona while Chelsea manager in 2005 and won 4-2 in London to go through to the Champions League quarter-finals. He repeated defeat with Chelsea against PSG in the quarter-finals of the Champions League in 2014 after losing the first leg 3-1, only to triumph 2-0 at Stamford Bridge to progress. Mourinho then managed 3 comebacks when he was manager of Roma. His side trailed Bodo Glimt 2-1 in the quarter-finals of the 2022 Europa Conference League, only to trounce them 4-0 in the return. A year later, Roma were 1-0 down to Salzburg in the Europa League second round and won the second leg 2-0. And his last comeback was in 2023, when Roma lost 1-0 to Feyenoord before hammering them 4-1 in Italy in the Europa League quarter-finals. Report by Mark Walker. Evening Times Sport, March 10. Scotland's midfield maestros driving Napoli's title charge. Report by Robbie Hanratty. Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmour took a bold step by swapping the English Premier League for Serie A last summer, but their decision to join Napoli is proving to be a masterstroke. The Scotland internationals were both instrumental in yesterday's 2-1 win over Fiorentina, a result that moves them just a point behind league leaders Inter Milan. McTominay in particular delivered a near-flawless midfield display, registering a remarkable 100% accuracy in 3 key areas. The 28-year-old completed all 26 of his passes, won all 6 of his duels, and successfully executed all 3 of his long passes. He also completed 4 out of 5 dribbles, underlining his growing confidence in possession. While McTominay provided balance and efficiency, Gilmour was the engine room of Napoli's midfield, producing a tenacious performance that saw him record the most tackles of any player on the pitch. The former Chelsea prodigy has seamlessly adapted to the demands of Italian football, combining his technical skill with an increasing physical presence. Their continued rise in Naples is excellent news for Scotland boss Steve Clarke, who names his squad tomorrow for the crucial UEFA Nations League playoff against Greece. There was a brief worry about McTominay's fitness after he was substituted with 4 minutes remaining against Fiorentina as he winced in pain. But Napoli manager Antonio Conte is convinced the former Manchester United star will be fit and available for international selection. Conte explained later, "He was tired, no problem. It shouldn't be anything special." Report by Robbie Hanratty.
That concludes this week's edition of the Glasgow Times Sports podcast. Please remember to subscribe to our channels @Q and Review and to tell your friends about our service